As a recovering people pleaser, I have one thing to say. I didn't like hearing this the first time that I heard it. I felt very attacked. But if you find that you are a people pleaser, I need you to listen to me. I say this with love. I say this with care. I say this with compassion. I say this as somebody who has been a people pleaser and who is now trying to work their way out of it. When you are a people pleaser, when you put your needs second and you focus on trying to make others happy and please them and trying to anticipate what they need and doing whatever you might think the other person needs to try to make them happy, in some ways, I know you're not trying to be, but it can be manipulative and you can be lying. You are not being truthful to yourself when you put your needs second and try to please somebody else.
Hey friends, so my hope for this video today is that this topic touches you and changes your life in a way that it has for me. There is a video on my page where I spoke on how what I call myself as a pick-me in recovery and where that came from. And a big part of that was me being a people pleaser. And one of the, I was listening to a podcast one day, and this lady had said, a lot of you all think that people pleasing is a personality trait, and I'm here to tell you that it is a trauma response and a survival tactic. And it knocked the wind out my sails. Like, it literally changed my life. Literally. I happen to be, I've spoken about this in a few videos, I am a child abuse survivor. And I obviously became who I thought the adults around me wanted me to be in order to be safe. And you really don't realize, it becomes such an exercise muscle that you don't even realize that you're doing it, right? And you victimize yourself without knowing it. So, before I get into my own personal story, we're going to go through a few TikToks, and then I'll come back at the end with my 2 cents and my own story time.
Because you're trying to feel safety. I get it. I understand. There are so many things in my brain that are just like automatic fight or flight responses. I go into fawning. I just want to people please. I want to make somebody else happy, because if you're happy, you won't hurt me. And I will sacrifice and put my feelings aside. No, I don't care. It's fine with me that we don't go there, because I'm scared that your reaction is going to cause me harm. So I put aside my feelings. I put aside my wants and needs to try to keep myself safe and to make you happy, because your happiness in my brain equates my safety. Please take care of yourself. If you identify as a people pleaser, I need you to learn how to say no. I need you to practice standing up for yourself and saying, no, that makes me feel weird. I need to respect what I want. Even with little things. You can start with little things. Little things like choosing where you want to eat. When somebody asks you, what would you like to eat? As a people pleaser, we tend to go, oh, whatever. What sounds good to you? What would you like? And then somebody else says their response, and you're like, that sounds great. I love that. How many times have you honored your own feeling? If it comes up in your body, they're like, man, I really want some French fries and a chocolate shake right now. But I know I'm not supposed to be eating those things. So I know they're going to make fun of me for saying that. And I know that they can't have it. I know they don't want it. So I'm not going to say that I want this specific thing. You sacrifice your needs. You're sacrificing your life. You only get this one life. You're sacrificing your life to try to feel safe, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with trying to make other people happy or give love and care and compassion, but when you sacrifice your needs, when you sacrifice your wants and needs, what you feel inside, you're not servicing anybody. In fact, you can honestly be causing more harm to yourself and to others in the long run.
People pleasers usually start out as parent pleasers. If you grew up in a household where your parents were pretty authoritative and were very focused on you following directions and listening to them and conforming to what they needed you to do, and were pretty clear, like, I don't care how you feel about it, you have to do it, period. And if they ever got really triggered or mad at you, if they just gave you the silent treatment, just kind of pretend like you didn't exist, pulled their love away. If you were trying to get their attention, they just ignored you. This can cause people pleasing. And honestly, same with things like spanking or smacking, or taking away pretty vital things to you, whether it's your friends, food, whatever. All of this can like very deeply ingrain people pleasing into your fight or flight system, because like you gotta stay safe. And if that means placating and pleasing everybody in the room, fine, I'm gonna do it because I need to stay connected to my friends and get my dinner. But often when you grew up in an environment like that, you just learn to kind of disconnect from your needs if you know that they're not going to be met, whether they're emotional, physical, whatever. You just focus more on making sure everybody else is happy. And sometimes people can describe this as a little bit manipulative, this whole people-pleasing process of like, I'm going to change my behavior to control the way that you think about me, is honestly what is required for a lot of people to have their needs met. Like they have to scrape and scrounge just to have some of their most basic needs met, even if the need is just peace. And this can be a very hard reflex to turn off, especially if you've been doing it since a tiny child. Again, it's wired into your brain. It's your knee-jerk reaction. But I just want to say that there is hope for changing some of these behaviors. A lot of it is just really developing the self-awareness of what you're doing and why, and finding little ways to rebel against your inner impulses to people please. And sometimes you just got to catch yourself on the back end. You say yes to something that you don't really want, and you're like, actually, hold on. Now that I think about it, no, I can't. And you take it back, okay? You take back your time, your energy, your power. You start to reconnect to, what do I actually like? What do I want to do for me? Sometimes this is a big question for people that they've never asked themselves. And if you haven't asked yourself these questions, it's time to reconnect with the inner child that didn't get to play enough. What do I like to do? What do I want to do? And how can I protect that above all else, including above other people's feelings?
Let me give y'all the key tips to stop being a people pleaser. And this is coming from someone that used to be a hardcore people pleaser. First and foremost is self-awareness. If you're not aware about it, how you gonna fix it? How? You have to realize that it is a toxic trait. Point blank, period. Number one, stop making excuses. Stop making excuses saying, oh, I'm just a really, really nice person. I just got a good heart. No, you control who has access to you and how much access they have to you. So if you choose to give up all of your stuff, 100% of your stuff to anyone, a friend, a significant other, etc., and you allow that person to take advantage of your kindness and to abuse it, that is you. That's on you, not on them, you. A lot of people just overextend themselves. You give up all your stuff to everyone else and you have nothing left for yourself. Okay? And you do that because you seek that validation. You seek that approval from them. And once you realize that you don't need it, things gonna change. And you're gonna be like me. But that's a conversation for another day. Let's get back to the topic. After you become self-aware and you stop making excuses, next you need to set boundaries. A couple boundaries that I personally have is when I say no, I mean it. That's it. If I say no, oh, you want to go here with me? No, I mean it. And I'm not going to feel bad for it. Now it's a journey because it was a journey for me. I always felt bad after I said no, but I had to stand on it. I said no. A lot of times I would go out for the simple fact that I was going out because somebody invited me out. I didn't want to go out. I didn't care to go out. I wouldn't be home watching movies and sipping on some wine. And when I went out, I would always feel like annoyed, irritated. It would just put me in a bad mood. And I feel like I was killing everyone's vibe because I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be in my bed. If you say no for something, it don't even have to be about going out. It could be like, oh, can you do this favor for me? If you say no, stand on it. Let your no be your no. And this last tip goes with the last tip we just talked about. Get to know yourself better, because if you get to know yourself, you won't be able to set better boundaries for yourself. You can't set boundaries when you don't even know what's your trigger. You don't even know what's the core reason of why you're doing all this. So I prioritize self-care days. I prioritize me days. I prioritize me days every single day. It might be an hour. It might be 30 minutes. I just need that time for me. Okay. And setting those healthy boundaries will allow you to have healthier relationships, because you're not doing it out of getting validation or some type of approval from people. You're doing it out of the kindness of your heart and doing it just because you love that person or because that person is your friend or your significant other or whatever. And it just creates an overall healthier life. And if you're someone that has anxiety, I promise you, your anxiety will decrease when you stop being a people pleaser. Because I'm just living life, you feel me? I'm just doing me. And you can do you too.
So put these tips in action, and I hope it was helpful.
Y'all, if there's one thing I fear in this world, it is a people pleaser, because conflict avoidant people will do you the most horrendous ways imaginable. Because any conflict between two people can be resolved with either communication or separation. People pleasers don't believe in either. They're just going to keep being nice to you until they hate you. And nobody talk about this, but people pleasing is just socially acceptable manipulation. That's why surviving a people pleaser feels like surviving a Saw movie. Bro, you don't trust anything or anybody. Like, one of your homies could literally offer you an all expenses paid trip to Dominican. That was a little freaky of me. To Bora Bora, and you would still decline because it's like, gang, you just doing this to make me like you. You're going to try to hold this over my head one day if I don't do something similar for you. And the crazy part is you also can't trust the words that come out of people's mouths. For example, back in the day, I'm talking to this lovely lady, you know what I'm saying? We texting back and forth. She texts me, I text her back. She don't reply for a few hours. Then she pop back up like, oh, my bad, I was taking a nap. I'm like, I'm not tripping. It's no drama. She's like, if you're mad at me, you can just say that. I don't want you to pretend like you're not mad when you're clearly mad. I'm like, gang, I have taken more naps than a barber shop. Rest is essential. It's not bothering me at all. She's like, okay, it's just a little weird because now all of a sudden you're saying no drama. Usually you would say it's no problem. I don't want there to be an issue. Oh my goodness. What did that man do to you?
If you're a recovering people pleaser and never want to revert back to your old ways, here are a list of things that you should never do again. One-sided relationships of any kind. Are they paying you for that free therapy that you've been giving them? Do they love you? Do they value you? Do they even respect you? Because you're giving them advice that they're not taking. You're listening to all of their problems that they don't want to solve. And yet anytime you speak about anything that you've been through, you're going through, or that's bothering you, you get dismissed, minimized, invalidated, and devalued. You get told to just let it go and move on. If you're done with people pleasing, let them go and move on. Because anyone that diminishes what you have been through, what you were dealing with, and what life is for you, while simultaneously expecting you to be there through all of their problems, some of which you have personally watched them induce upon themselves, and you're supporting them religiously, like to the core, while they're just feeding off of you, that's still people pleasing. Just because we can empathize with and understand other people's trauma, and have the capacity and the unlimited ability to be there for people the way that people have not been there for us, that does not mean that you should extend yourself to people that don't care about you. Everyone wants to be heard, seen, validated, and valued. We have all been through a lot. And sometimes people do not have the capacity to give. But if the reason why someone is not giving to you what you are giving to them is because they don't respect you, and you find them brushing off everything that you have been through, telling you to just let it go, get over it, when they're not over anything that they've been through at all, that's a toxic one-sided relationship that will leave you bitter, resentful, and angry. And it will only get worse the more you continue to talk to them. So stop. Which brings me to my next thing. Overextending yourself when you don't have the capacity. Giving your last to people that don't appreciate it. Simply because you believe in other people more than you believe in yourself. As a recovering people pleaser, the circumstances of my life have been terrible. So there have been many points in my life where I have poured way more into other people than myself because I have felt like at times there was absolutely no hope for me. We live in a capitalistic society, and when you have debt, that looms over your head every single day that you cannot pay a bill. But if you are constantly giving your last to people that do not care about you, and that are there to just drain your energy and feed off of you, that continues the cycle of people pleasing. Stop it. And another thing that you should stop is sweetening everything up for everybody else because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Stop caring about other people's feelings when you care about your own boundaries. Who cares if they get mad? You've been super respectful, you were very direct, you were very polite. So what if they caught an attitude? They can catch that attitude by themselves. Because there is no rule book that says that we actually have to deal with this. Which also means that you have to stop manipulating and gaslighting yourself into believing that you have to have these people in your life just because no one has been there for you, that you wanted there for you, like how you have been there for them and like how society told you these people were going to be there for you. Our loneliness, our trauma, our pain, it's not an excuse to constantly let the same type of person in our lives, just for us to be upset about it and remind us of all the trauma that we've worked very hard to get away from. At some point, you have to cut everyone off, including the version of you that allows it to happen. Just because you're broke, it doesn't mean you have to be broken.
Do it then. Oh. Damn. I ain't went out there talking.
Hi, my name is Michaela and I'm a recovering people pleaser, and part of my journey of trying to stop my people pleasing tendencies is just being honest about how I feel, because literally for most of my life it feels like any time I have like really strong feelings about something, and usually if like something has hurt me or if something's upsetting me or bothering me, I repress it and I hold so much resentment and anger because of it, and I just don't want to be like that. Like, none of us should be like that. But the few times I do choose to be honest with people in life, it feels like people get really upset, and that bothers me even more. I do not like the confrontation. I don't like making people angry. I don't like hurting people's feelings. So I just continue this vicious cycle of repressing my own feelings and hating myself and others because of it. So I've started my healing journey, and a lot of times, because I know I can be very harsh with my delivery on things, I will still take a really long time to think about what I'm saying to people. But I am definitely way more willing to share how I feel about things, more willing than I was before, at least. And let me tell you, it never gets easier. Like, every time I've had to do it in the last few months, it feels so hard. I don't like making people upset. I don't like hurting people's feelings. And if sharing my feelings feels like it hurts someone else's feelings, a lot of times I would rather just not share. But one thing I'm noticing is that I had almost no identity before, because I was always just trying to say the right things and be the right person for everyone. And you can't do that. There's no way you can cater to everyone. So I just started to be true to myself, because that's what's going to be the most important at the end of the day. And I feel like I'm finally a person again. And I'm not going to cry here on TikTok today, but I can't tell you like how big that feels. Like, I have not felt like a real person in so long. So yeah, I mean, if I could like teach anyone anything, like I feel like I talk about a lot of things here, but like, be true to yourself, man. Like, you are important. Like, I don't know why I never thought I was important enough to feel like I could be authentic. Love you, and I mean it.
To my recovering people pleasers. Before you relapse and people please again, sit back and ask yourself, when was the last time the people pleased you?
The last video is probably my favorite, and I'm probably going to hear it. It's probably going to live rent free in my head. But when he said, when you feel like you're going to relapse, ask yourself if the people that you are trying to please are pleasing you. I want to say that for me, what helped me recover was I went through like a dark night of the soul 2 years ago. It might be 3 now. Yeah, it's been 3 years now. And I was in a place where I feel like my relationship had gotten the worst that it had ever been. COVID literally just did a number on my mental health. I had had a baby at the time, so I was dealing with, postpartum depression. And I just really felt like everybody around me had me screwed up. And I feel like when I lost my cousin, it was literally just the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Because at that point, I just felt like, outside of my kids, I felt like God took everything away from me. And I was literally actively losing my mind. And I remember sitting in this house and just bawling my eyes out and asking God, like, God, why am I going through this? Why are you putting me through these things? Why do you keep allowing people to be around me that are hurting me, right? And I had to sit there, and God dealt with my business, and he pretty much showed me that it was me. This is why they say that self-accountability is so important, because while people have done us foul, right? And the things that people have done to us, we do not deserve it. We have to ask ourselves what part we played in that equation. And I think a lot of the times when we're holding ourselves accountable, it's difficult because you're telling yourself, I didn't do anything wrong, right? And that's true. You probably didn't do anything wrong to them, but you did to yourself. So, for instance, I'll show y'all what that looked like for me. In the beginning of my relationship, I did not have the boundaries that I should have had. Like, I had things where I would say, I don't like this, I don't like that, I'm not dealing with this, I'm not dealing with that. And the kind of personality that he had at the time, he would challenge all of that. Like, yeah, okay, we'll see. Because he was used to dealing with women that let him do whatever, right? And so I will never forget, like, he smoked cigarettes. I don't. So one of the things that we spoke about when we decided to move in together was that we weren't, like, smoking in the house was not going to be a thing. Like, he smokes weed, that doesn't bother me. But the cigarettes I can't do. And so, y'all, literally the first day that we moved in, I'm talking about the whole family. His whole family that helped him move in was in the living room just blowing big Newports. And I was just like, bro, did you not hear what I said? And a lot of the times we would get into it because I would say one thing or we would talk about one thing and he would do another. One of the things that was big for me was I'm not a company kind of person. To me, your home is very sacred. Everybody doesn't need to be in there. And I realized that he was taking that personal as if I was coming for his family, when in reality, all it was I don't mind them being here, but it doesn't need to be an every week occurrence or every weekend occurrence, right? It got to a point where, like, literally, like, my in-laws were just showing up like, hey, you didn't know we was coming? And so I feel like God let it get to a head the way that he did because, you know how they say, like, sometimes God will have to allow people to hurt you so bad that you have no choice to let go. And that is where it got for me. So during this time, we had a family member that was ill. That was another conversation that we had was, you know, our home was not going to be a boarding house. Well, as soon as this family member got ill, he was the first one to go run and say, oh, you know what? Yeah, while you're recovering, you can stay here. And what upset me about the situation was there was a whole family meeting that was had, but the family meeting did not include me. And I'm the person that lives here. You know, I'm the one contributing to the rent and bills and whatnot. And I dealt with it because this was a family member of his that I was really close to and I loved. But it just became too much. It was like you have this person here. This is an extra mouth. Then you still have family members that are coming over every weekend. And then I have my children. And then there's COVID. And like I said, I'm actively losing my mind right now, right? Then I just lost my cousin. Then he and I went through a really, 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 really rough patch where there was just some things that I wasn't aware of. There was some skeletons that had fell out the closet. And I was just like, you know what? F all of this. And it got to a point where it was too much. I couldn't take it anymore. I took my babies and I left. Well, now I'm in a new place and I'm by myself, right? And it's so funny because a lot of the time we're so stuck in survival mode that we don't realize the things that we truly allowed around us and allowed in our space. And being in this place by myself caused me to deal with it. And I spent so many nights, like it's a video in here where the young lady was talking about how, like, you'll just be minding your business and then you'll start thinking about what somebody did to you and you're like, damn. And that's what was happening to me. And so one of the books that I read, I speak about it a lot, it is one of my favorite books, was You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And she talks about how the things that happen to you, how you may not necessarily, like, physically cause them, but you cause them by the things that you're allowing around you, right? And then after that book, I read Create Boundaries, Create Peace. It's another book that I speak on a lot in here. And it speaks about, like, how a lot of us have a tough time with setting boundaries, especially us minorities, because setting boundaries is almost like betrayal in our cultures and communities, right? And so she spoke on how, you know, a lot of the time we're so busy trying to protect other people and their feelings that we literally betray ourselves. And when I read that, I was just like, wow. Because a lot of the time, for myself especially, I used to really try to watch how I said things to people, or I would literally ruminate for days on how I should say something. And then honestly, y'all, I would say whatever I needed to say. I would have the world, I'm talking about, I'd have so much anxiety about speaking up for myself that I would have to be G's. And I would say something in the most polite way that I knew to say it, right? And I would still get cussed out from here to Africa. And so it was so many things that was happening around me, to me, outside of me, that God was just allowing me to see. And it really was so helpful, because that's when I started to exercise that muscle of, I'm going to say what I have to say, and if they don't like it, fuck them. Then they're not supposed to be around me. So I'll never forget, my mom and I were having a conversation. And I can't even remember what the conversation was about now, but we were having a conversation. And I was talking to her. I was saying my piece. And y'all, she literally just started yelling. Like, just was shouting over me. And I remember stopping in the middle of the conversation. And I said, wait a minute. I said, why are you yelling at me? And then she tried to justify it and was like, well, I don't want to have this conversation with you. And And I remember telling her, like, hey, so all you had to do was just say that. Like, you didn't have to yell at me. And I think I said something along the lines of like, wow, yeah. So I'm going to get off the phone because clearly you're in the mood and I didn't do anything to you. And I just hung up. And I think she tried to call me back later that day and I just didn't want to talk to her. And after like a few days, she did apologize and tell me like, oh, you know, like you didn't deserve that, whatever. But that was the first time that I stood up to my mother and I was unapologetic about it. I was very much on some of whatever happens. Because she was one of the main ones that, like I've spoken on this before, my mother was one of my first bullies. And when I would try to speak up for myself, I was either, you know, verbally bullied or emotionally bullied, or, you know, she'd gaslight me or she'd make me feel like I was the problem. I remember we had a really big fallout during COVID, and when I wasn't speaking to her, she sent her friend to come talk to me, and her and that friend aren't even friends anymore. I've dealt with it, you know, with my father. I dealt with it. I've told the story. Well, I don't really speak too much about Evil Stepmom, but I've told, you know, a synopsis of Evil Stepmom, and she really was the main one. And, you know, the reason why it really is like that is because you, as a child, you need the people around you to like you for your survival. You need the people around you to like you for your safety, right? And for me, you know, I'm literally being abused at home by Evil Stepmom, and then I'm going to school and all I want is friends because I'm already going through enough at home. And that's really where it comes from. So when the therapist said people pleasers were parent pleasers, I'm sure it's not like that for everybody, but for myself personally, that's definitely where it stemmed from. And for myself, I can look back at a lot of relationships, whether it was friendships, romantic relationships, as a hairstylist, even some business relationships where I was literally killing myself trying to keep the people around me happy, and they still weren't. If you guys go back and watch my video, you know, about me being a pick-me, I talk about like me being in a relationship with somebody that I had wanted to be in a relationship with for so long. And I think part of that, of course, was like the rejection. So it was like, oh, you didn't want me before, now you're back. Okay, cool. And I did everything that I was, you know, I felt like as a woman I was supposed to be doing. And that man was still doing whatever the fuck he wanted to do. My feelings were not important. That man could literally sit there and watch me cry and then go do whatever he was doing. You know what I mean? I've had friends, you guys, were like, I let them bitches down. But when I started to really truly become myself unapologetically, and it was really like, okay, well, whoever don't like it, those were the same friends that was just like, oh yeah, I don't fuck with her no more, fuck that bitch. I have a saying now, and I have this conversation with clients a lot, and I'm sure I've said this in another video, where I say now, like, I'm gonna say what I have to say, and then I can apologize for it later. But I'm not holding it in. I'm not ruminating on it for 3 days. If I'm uncomfortable, we just gonna all be uncomfortable until it's talked about. And that is one of the things that has helped me in general. Like, it's so funny because we feel like we're being mean, and then there's some people that now they don't like you having boundaries, right? So they'll tell you that you're being mean. And it used to be a trigger for me, but now it's a compliment. Because I know my heart and I know what I give, right? I'm very supportive. I'm very loving. But I had to learn discernment, and I had to learn who to give that to. And I also had to learn that people have to earn that. Because a lot of us are just walking around here giving love freely. And that's cool. You know, it's a beautiful trait to have. But there's really some people walking this earth that do not deserve it. And they will suck the living life out of you if you let them. You'll look up, you'll be broke. It'll be people living in your house, eating up your food. Just everything around you is in turmoil because you have not at one point said no. My favorite response now is because I don't want to. And it took me a very long time. A very long time. It was definitely some growing pains, even in my relationship, because, you know, he was used to me getting to a point where I would not say things because I didn't want conflict or I didn't want our house to be in disarray, right? But I had to realize that I wasn't doing him, us, or the relationship any favors by behaving in such a way, because I was literally uncomfortable and I was literally like, my spirit was not at rest just to keep everybody else around me happy. And let me just say this without telling too much of my family's business. There are people in my family, and there's in-laws that I have that, baby, they didn't like my ass when I was people pleasing, and they don't like my ass now. So what was I doing all of that for? Another thing that I liked was the young lady that was speaking on how when she was talking about how, like, you reframe your speech. That was another thing. So I know that you guys notice I do this in videos a lot, where I'll get ready to apologize and I'll be like, I'm not going to apologize. I was getting ready to apologize. It's a trauma response, but I'm not apologizing. So, like, when she was talking about how you'll say, like, when somebody apologizes and you'll go, it's okay. No, it's not. And I've learned to just now just say thank you. Because no, it's not okay. And I'm not going to keep teaching you that it's okay to play in my fucking face, right? So, for instance, my husband and I, we had a really big blow up a while back. And I'm one of the people that I like to sit on my feelings and feel my feelings before I come and talk about it. And so I remember telling him, like, hey, so you know what? This, that, and the third that you said, like, it was very hurtful, and I'm not in this place to talk to you about it right now. That's not even something that I would do. I would just walk around being a victim. And granted, yes, like, you had me fucked up and my feelings should be hurt, but I'm not a victim, right? And that was the difference, you guys, was like, I realize now I used to sit there and be like, why does everybody do me like this? Why do people treat me like this? Why do people talk to me this way? Why is all of these things happening around me? And I realized it was because I was allowing these people to victimize me. I was so busy feeling sorry for myself and being a victim instead of empowering myself and saying, nah, this was fucked up and you didn't deserve it. Okay, so how are we going to take care of us, right? And so now I will tell you, nah, that was messed up. I talked to you guys in another video about me and my mom having a disagreement, and I didn't care for how my mother spoke to me. And I told her, listen, I take full accountability for the part that I played in this misunderstanding, but I did not deserve for you to speak to me the way that you did. And I also have learned to accept the apologies that I'm not going to get, and I have to move in a way where I'm taking care of me. And so after the fact, back to the blow up with me and Nick, after the fact, he did come back like a day or two, and he did say, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I do apologize. I was a jerk, whatever. You know what I said? Thank you. Because it's not okay. We so used to going, it's okay. No, it's not. Actually, no, it's not. We're going to stop okaying shit that people do to us. We're going to stop apologizing in advance for being who we are. No, we are who the fuck we are. And that's that. And if there are people that are not okay with that, then they have to get away from us. They're not our people. Because there are a lot of people that I call it being sick. So when we were in our sickness and we were in our illness, there was a lot of people that were comfortable. They don't like you now because they cannot benefit from your illness anymore because you are now healed. And I also want you all to understand that this is very much a journey. It doesn't just stop today. There's so many times where I have to remind myself, like, oh, no, we're not doing that. And I even tell my children that as well. Like, even when them two, like when they're, especially my toddlers, they bicker, right? I make them apologize to each other. And when they go, it's okay. No, it's not. No, it is not okay. You tell your brother or your sister, thank you so much for apologizing. And then y'all going about your business. But we're not okaying trash behavior. But anyway, y'all, that's my TED Talk for today. You guys get in the comments. Give me y'all 2 cents. I always say this is a safe space. Let me know your experience. And I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.